Every one of these songs is a certified classic, but they weren't meant to be, even though they've been on the radio for decades and helped sell millions of records.
Asher lady, Asher lady.
These hits started life on the flip side. Here are 15 classic rock songs you never knew were B-sides.
God only knows what I'd be without you.
Number 15, The Beatles, Don't Let Me Down. Released as the B-side to Get Back in 1969, Don't Let Me Down was John Lennon's desperate love letter to Yoko Ono. Paul McCartney called it a genuine cry for help. And somehow it didn't even make the original Let It Be album. Phil Spector left it off when compiling the record in 1970, which could have turned one of Lennon's rawest late Beatles songs into a footnote. But before all that album drama, there was The Rooftop. On January 30th, 1969, the Beatles performed at atop Apple Corps headquarters at 3 Savile Row with Billy Preston on electric piano. Lennon famously mangled a lyric in the first Rooftop take, but the mistake almost adds to the moment. Exposed, freezing, human, and alive. That B-side became one of the defining documents of the Beatles' final chapter. The next track not only started as a B-side, but got held back from official release in the US. Number 14, The Jimi Hendrix Experience, Stone Free.
I said stone free, do what I do. Stone free.
Stone Free was the first original song Hendrix wrote for the Experience. Producer Chaz Chandler encouraged him to come up with an original for the B-side of Hey Joe, because unlike that cover, a Hendrix composition could bring in publishing royalties.
I gotta be free. Wow. I said stone free.
In the UK, it backed up Hey Joe in December 1966. But when Reprise issued Hey Joe in America, they swapped in 51st Anniversary instead, meaning Stone Free didn't get an official US release until the 1969 Smash Hits collection. The next song wasn't saved for an album at all. It was cut as a non-album B-side, but went on to become much more. Number 13, Led Zeppelin, Hey Hey, What Can I Do?
Hey, what can I do?
Led Zeppelin didn't really believe in singles, but Atlantic picked Immigrant Song as the next big release, and the band wasn't about to sacrifice another Led Zeppelin 3 album track for the flip side. So they gave the label Hey Hey, What Can I Do? A loose acoustic-heavy Zeppelin gem, recorded at Olympic Studios in 1970, with Jimmy Page on acoustic guitar, John Paul Jones on bass and mandolin, John Bonham on drums, and Robert Plant sounding like he's telling you a story he probably shouldn't.
Said I got a little woman and she won't be true. On Sunday morning when we go down.
The song appeared on no original Zeppelin album, and that scarcity turned it into collector bait. For years, it was one of the great non-album Zeppelin tracks, passed around on the Immigrant Song single, later surfacing on an Atlantic compilation, but not arriving on a Led Zeppelin CD until the 1990 Led Zeppelin boxed set.
Sunday morning when we go down to church, you see the men folk standing in line.
Number 12, The Doors, Roadhouse Blues. Roadhouse Blues was released as the B-side to You Make Me Real in 1970. At first, the A-side had the better chart story. You Make Me Real peaked at number 50 on the Billboard Hot 100, while Roadhouse Blues only reached number 76 on the Cashbox Top 100. But over time, the B-side buried the A-side. The climb wasn't sudden. FM radio kept playing it. Live versions gave it muscle, and compilation albums kept pushing it back into the bloodstream until Roadhouse Blues became one of the Doors' songs everybody knows.
Ashen lady, ashen lady.
The next B-side became immortal, partly because of one notorious Ziggy-era image. Number 11, David Bowie, Suffragette City.
I'm back in Suffragette City. Don't lean on the man to get up on the ticket.
Originally released as the B-side to Starman in 1972, Suffragette City was a track Bowie had first offered to Mott the Hoople. They turned it down and recorded All the Young Dudes instead. The song also became tied to one of Bowie's most notorious Ziggy-era concert images.
Hey man, I'm in school at 16. I said, hey man, I'm the workshop.
The 1972 Mick Rock photo where Bowie appears to simulate fellatio on Mick Ronson's guitar while actually playing it with his teeth. In 1976, RCA reissued Suffragette City as an A-side single to promote the Changes One Bowie compilation. It didn't chart, but that re-promotion, plus its permanent place in the Ziggy Stardust canon, helped turn a B-side into a Bowie signature. Radio demand got the next B-side promoted to an A-side. Number 10, the Doobie Brothers, Black Water.
On Mississippi, she's calling my name.
Black Water was originally released on the reverse of Another Park, Another Sunday. Producer Ted Templeman never considered it a single, calling it just an acoustic thing. Patrick Simmons wrote the song after riding a New Orleans streetcar, drawing on a lifelong love of Delta blues and childhood readings of Huckleberry Finn and Tom Sawyer. Then WROV AM in Roanoke, Virginia started playing it. The response was overwhelming. Music director Chuck Holloway said no one was requesting anything else. 5 weeks later, Warner Brothers officially promoted it as an A-side. Blackwater climbed all the way to number 1 on the Billboard Hot 100. We're counting down 15 classic rock songs you never knew were B-sides. So far, a Led Zeppelin track cut outside the album's spotlight, a Doors classic that eventually buried its A-side, and a Doobie Brothers number 1 rescued by radio listeners. But the top 9 included some of the most famous songs in rock history, and every one of them started on the flip side of the record. Number 9, The Beach Boys, God Only Knows.
God only knows what I'd be without you.
Released as the B-side to Wouldn't It Be Nice in 1966, God Only Knows was the track Brian Wilson and lyricist Tony Asher feared might never get airplay. The word God in the title wasn't exactly radio-friendly in 1966. Wilson knew the risk and decided the song was worth it. In the U.S., Capitol led with Wouldn't It Be Nice, and God Only Knows peaked at number 39. In the UK, they reversed the sides and it reached number 2. Paul McCartney later praised it as his favorite song, and it's widely cited as one he called the greatest song ever written. The next song took years to become an A-side. Number 8, The Rolling Stones, You Can't Always Get What You Want.
That you can't always get what you want, honey.
Released as the B-side to Honky Tonk Women in 1969, the reason was practical. Honky Tonk Women was the obvious single for the Stones, while You Can't Always Get What You Want was longer, stranger, and more sentimental.
But if you try sometime, you just might find.
The London Bach Choir recorded the song's famous choral intro, but later asked to have its name removed after discovering the album was titled Let It Bleed and included Midnight Rambler, a track about a serial killer. But the song kept gaining life on radio and compilations, and London Records finally resurfaced it in 1973, letting the former B-side chart on its own. The next B-side was saved by a radio powerhouse blasting into Detroit. Number 7. Elton John, Benny and the Jets. In the UK, Benny and the Jets was released as the B-side to Candle in the Wind, and Elton John himself didn't want it released as a single in America. He believed Candle in the Wind was the stronger track. Then CKLW, the Windsor powerhouse blasting into Detroit, started playing it, thanks in part to legendary music director Rosalie Trombley. And R&B radio helped turn it into a crossover smash. That response pushed MCA toward the US A-side release, and Benny and the Jets shot to number 1 on the Billboard Hot 100. Number 6. The Beatles, I Am the Walrus. Released as the B-side to Hello Goodbye in 1967, I Am the Walrus was actually John Lennon's pick for the A-side. But Paul McCartney and George Martin overruled him, insisting Hello Goodbye was more commercial. Lennon never quite got over it. He later said, I Am the Walrus, losing to Hello Goodbye, was part of the moment where he began to submerge. The song itself was far stranger, a psychedelic Lennon fever dream with a live BBC broadcast of King Lear mixed in during the studio session, while someone manually tuned the radio in real time. Though maybe McCartney and Martin were right commercially, because the BBC banned it over the lyric, "You let your knickers down." And in the end, I Am the Walrus had the last laugh. It appeared on both the number 1 Hello Goodbye single and the number 2 Magical Mystery Tour EP in the UK. The next song was stuck as a B-side after it was cut from one of the biggest albums ever made. Number 5. Fleetwood Mac, Silver Springs. Stevie Nicks considered Silver Springs one of her best songs. It was cut from Rumors because, at over 4.5 minutes, it strained the vinyl running time, and the album already had too many slow Nicks songs. Mick Fleetwood and Lindsey Buckingham broke the news without giving her a vote. And she didn't take it lightly, that her song was put on the B-side of Buckingham's Go Your Own Way. The song stayed buried for 2 decades, until the 1997 reunion performance on The Dance turned it into a Grammy-nominated track and gave it a massive second life. The next B-side took off because the A-side was too much for radio. Number 4. The Rolling Stones, Ruby Tuesday.
Goodbye, Ruby Tuesday. Who could?
In the US, Ruby Tuesday was the B-side to Let's Spend the Night Together, but plenty of radio stations wanted no part of the A-side. The lyrics were considered obscene by 1967 standards. When the Stones appeared on The Ed Sullivan Show, Sullivan's people gave the band an ultimatum: change the lyric or don't perform it.
Go cash your dreams before they slip.
They compromised by singing Let's Spend Some Time Together, while Jagger rolled his eyes at the camera. Let's Spend the Night Together stalled at number 55 on the Hot 100, and Ruby Tuesday went to number 1.
Just can't be changed to a life where nothing.
The next song was overshadowed by one of the most iconic singles of all time. Number 3, The Beatles, Revolution. Revolution was the B-side to Hey Jude, but it still charted on the Billboard Hot 100, reaching number 12, while Hey Jude dominated the number 1 spot. Lennon originally wanted the slower version as the single. McCartney and Harrison said it was too slow, so the Beatles re-recorded it faster. And Lennon demanded a distorted guitar sound so extreme that engineer Jeff Emmerich had to route the guitars directly through the console, deliberately overloading the channel. The next song was stuck on the B-side because the label didn't hear a hit. Number 2, Rod Stewart, Maggie May.
Wake up, Maggie, I think I got something to say to you.
The label heard no hit in it. Even Stewart thought it had no melody. So Maggie May was buried as the B-side to Reason to Believe. Then DJ started flipping the record.
I found myself a rock and roll band that needs a help.
Exactly who flipped it first is one of those radio history rabbit holes. But once stations started playing the B-side, Mercury couldn't ignore it anymore. Maggie May went to number 1 on the Billboard Hot 100, while Reason to Believe stalled far behind it. Rod Stewart learned the hard way that sometimes the guys who know better miss the obvious. The number 1 spot goes to the B-side that became a band's biggest hit and ended up causing them more problems than they ever expected. Number 1, Kiss, Beth. Gene Simmons and Paul Stanley weren't exactly begging for Beth to define Kiss. Producer Bob Ezrin believed in it, but Casablanca tucked it onto the B-side of Detroit Rock City. Then Rosalie Trombley at CKLW Radio in Windsor, Ontario started playing it after her teenage daughter wouldn't stop asking for it. Listener requests exploded. The B-side took over and became Kiss's highest charting U.S. hit. The song's success shocked everyone. It crossed over to adult contemporary and easy listening stations. Listeners who never saw themselves as Kiss fans started showing up. Suddenly, male Kiss fans had an easier time convincing their girlfriends to come to shows. But playing it live was a nightmare. None of the other Kiss members had played on the studio track. Ace Frehley missed the Beth session, so Ezrin brought in Dick Wagner from the Alice Cooper world to play the acoustic guitar, while Ezrin handled piano and the orchestra carried the rest.
You're so empty that our house just ain't a home.
So, on stage, Kiss couldn't just bash it out like a normal band arrangement. The solution was a pre-recorded backing track while Peter Criss sat alone on a drum case and sang. Still, the success created lasting resentment. Criss claimed Paul Stanley was jealous that the band's biggest hit was tied to the drummer. But there was no stopping Beth, a ballad co-written by Peter Criss, buried on the flip side and rescued by a teenage girl in Ontario.
Just a few more hours, and I'll be right home to you.
That's our list. 15 songs you've heard 1,000 times that all started on the flip side of the record. What song did we miss? If you made it this far, you'll probably crush the Backstage Classics trivia book. It's linked below.